Hello there, it's your friend Phil, project management trainer and coach. Over the past number of months, we've had lots of students interested in the ACP exam. I'm going to be covering with you today the PMI-ACP requirements and some ideas of how you can get started on this journey. The first thing to do is download the Pmi-Acp Handbook. You want to make sure you read this handbook on the screen and that you understand its contents. The contents of the outline could be broken down into these buckets. 1, how to use the handbook. 2, all about the ACP certification. 3, how to complete the online application and pay for the exam. 4, the PMI's audit process, which many of you are familiar with. And exam policies and procedures. I'm going to break this down by jumping straight into the life cycle for the ACP exam. So let's have an overview of what this life cycle looks like. You have 90 days to complete your application. You send it in for an application completeness review. You could be audited, and if your application is audited, you've got 90 days to send in your audit materials. The PMI will process your audit materials in not more than a week. And the eligibility begins upon successful completion of the audit. The next step after passing the audit, if you're audited, will be to pay for the exam. You cannot schedule the exam except you've paid your fees. And then the next step is the multiple choice examination eligibility. You've got 1 year from the date of your application being accepted to take this multiple choice exam. You can take the exam 3 times within that 1 year. So my advice to you is the moment PMI has accepted your application, pay immediately because your time starts ticking the moment your application is accepted. The next step here is your certification cycle, which begins the day you pass your exam. You go into certification maintenance mode. You don't have to take the exam again, but you do need to keep up your PDUs, professional development units. You can complete the renewal process once you have earned and reported 30 PDUs for the requirements and submit renewal fees. If you don't submit your renewal fees and you don't get enough PDUs, you go into a 1-year limbo period. They call it a certification suspension. You don't want this to happen to you, but there's still a remedy. You've got 1 year to get the PDUs that are required, the 30. So let's say your cycle ended today, let's say August 10th, for example. You've got till August 10th the next year to get the PDUs you need. Failing to do so will mean that your application, your efforts, everything goes down the drain. And you have to start from ground zero, getting certified again, and you don't want that to happen. The good news is that lots of people who get certified and are PMI members, they can attend webinars on projectmanagement.com, which will enable you to get PDUs that you need over the 3-year period. If you're really serious and you attend those webinars, you should be able to get the amount of PDUs that you need. And remember, there are different ways of doing that. All right, so that is the high-level map of the world for the ACP. Now, some PMPs who are certified, some CAPMs, they ask the question, well, what do I need to become an ACP? So let's take a look at these eligibility requirements. To be eligible for the Pmi-Acp, you must meet the educational and professional requirements in this image. First of all, your educational background could be an associate's degree or the global equivalent of that, or a high school diploma. And the general experience means you must have 2,000 hours working on project teams. That experience should have been earned within the past 5 years. You cannot go back more than 5 years for this general project experience. And then on top of that, you are expected to have Agile Project Management Experience, within which 1,500 hours over a period of not less than 8 months should have been spent working on project teams using Agile methodologies. And this experience must have been earned in the last 3 years. These hours in this part of the screen I'm highlighting are in addition to the 2,000 hours of general project experience. In addition to that, you also need 21 hours of Agile project management training. And this should be documented, and you should be able to prove that you have been for the 21 hours of Agile project management training. So let's take that again. If you have a minimum of a high school diploma, and in addition to that, 2,000 hours of general project experience working on project teams, and in addition to that, 1,500 hours over a period of not less than 8 months working on project teams using Agile methodologies, plus 21 hours of training in Agile. If you have those 4 requirements met, then you are eligible for the ACP exam. Do note that these 2,000 hours are within 12 months working on project teams, okay? It says at the bottom here, for those who hold a PMP and/or PGMP certifications, PMI has already verified you have exceeded the project experience requirements. In other words, PMI knows you already have this general project management experience. In other words, PMP and PGMP holders will be accepted as fulfilling the general project experience requirements. And whether you have that in the past 5 years or not, as long as you got a PMP, you don't need to worry about this piece, or PGMP. What you do need to be concerned about is the 1,500 hours, 8 months working on project teams using Agile methodologies. And this has to be within the past 3 years, no more than the past 3 years. So for some folks who have done the PMP, it might be quite straightforward getting this experience. My advice to anyone who wants to take this certification and is PMP certified is find Agile projects to work on. Find Agile projects to get your 1,500 hours over a period of 8 months. And with that, plus the 21 hours of training in Agile, you will be good to go for the exam. Next page talks about how to complete your online application. That is very straightforward. I would advise you to just go straight to this page on the PMI's website. If you go to pmi.org and under certifications, look for Agile, you can start filling in all the demographics, all the basic information. It's very straightforward. On this page, it goes into more detail about the 2,000 hours that are needed. It says, use the general project experience worksheet in the application to record your general project experience. This includes time spent working on the project, regardless of the methodologies. The experience does not necessarily have to be paid work, but it does need to be in a professional setting. For example, one of my students said, Phil, I have experience working for a nonprofit, and we were helping these kids get one thing or another, and it's all documented and it's professional. And I said, well, that will go for any project management experience. Because it's nonprofit, because it's free, does not diminish the gravity of what you've done on such projects, the great work that you've done. So I tell people, hey, find a nonprofit, work as a project manager, working with Agile methodologies, and that will count. You could work for all sorts of organizations, including yours. using Agile concepts and Agile methodologies. So if you're at a loss for how to get those hours, that could be an idea. And then it goes on further to say, you need a minimum of 2,000 hours, 12 months of unique non-overlapping experience accrued within the last 5 years. This means that each month you worked on multiple overlapping projects that ran simultaneously, those would count as 1 month towards the total requirement. And then you can see it's giving you an example below. So what all they're trying to say is that you can't say, oh, I worked 4 months here and another 4 months for project 2. No, there's some overlap. So you need to get rid of the overlap, and that is 6 months when you really boil it down. And if you go down to the next section here, it says Agile Project Experience. Using the Agile worksheet, you can document this. It says record each project you've worked on individually. You need a minimum of 1,500 hours, 8 months of unique non-overlapping experience accrued within the last 3 years. This means that each month you worked on multiple overlapping projects, that will only count as 1 month towards the total requirement, the same as what they said above. Further, your Agile project experience must be unique and separate from your general project experience. So you can't say up here, well, I did some Agile work over a period of 12 months, so I'm going to take 2,000 hours and take the 1,500 hours that I need out of that. No, it has to be separate. So in essence, if you have been in the Agile domain only, you would need to have 3,500 hours of project management experience, 2,000 for the purpose of this first requirement of 1 year of project experience. And the second piece would be used for this 1,500 hours under the Agile umbrella. So really what you're looking for is 3,500 hours, 2,000 hours in general project management. If it happens to be Agile, all well and good. If not, all good as well. It could have been waterfall. But in addition to that, you need the 1,500 hours of nothing but Agile. Now, let me say that from my experience working with the PMI on my application, you do need to make sure that your Agile experience is Agile project management experience, not Agile coaching experience or Agile, I should say, coding experience. Because if you were a coder, coding is not necessarily Agile project management, and you could get some resistance for that. So you want to be careful submitting your application that it really is Agile project management experience and not just Agile coding experience, but you need to show where Agile methodologies were applied to the projects you're working on. Okay. Next page here goes into the application and payment, which is very straightforward. Next page here, still on the application and payment, shows you that if you send in your application, it takes 5 calendar days for you to be reviewed and given your application to be reviewed and given a response. You can see the prices for the ACP exam as at now, as at 2018, August. You can see that if you are a member of the PMI, you pay $435 to take that computer-based exam or the paper-based exam. And if you're not a member, you pay $495 to take the exam. To re-examine, the re-examination, $335 for members, $395 for non-members. And to renew your certification, if you are a member, you can see it's cheaper, again, $60. And if you're not a member, $150. So at the end of the day, it pays for you to be a PMI member for these certifications. And you can see the prices in euros as well. So again, to submit your payment is straightforward. It's all done online. There have been instances where I have called the PMI and paid for certain students who pay us for training and the examination, paid for those students for their PMI application, for the application for the exam. To send in your application is no cost, but once your application is approved, to be able to take the exam, you do need to pay. And PMI tells you how you can do that, but generally people pay by credit card on the website. It says to obtain a refund for the Pmi-Acp, you must make a request 30 days before the exam eligibility expiration date. A refund of $200 will be made if you have not scheduled or taken the exam. So if you are really serious about taking the exam, only go ahead then and pay. If you're not serious or you're not sure whether you're going to do it, I would advise not paying, because you're not going to get much of your money back. You're only going to get $200 back. On this page, they talk about the audit process. The audit process is very straightforward. The places where people could fail is when they have lied, that they have experience that they don't. So as long as you've told the truth about experience, about work you've done, and it's verifiable, you won't run into trouble. Next here we have the information about the exam. So there are 120 questions, multiple choice questions. Of the 120 questions, 20 are considered what the PMI calls pretest questions. Now, pretest questions do not affect the score, and they're used only for data gathering purposes. They're randomly placed throughout the exam. You don't know what they are. So I tell students, do the best you can. It will take roughly 2 to 3 hours for most candidates, but you have 3 hours to do it. I wasn't in a hurry to max out my time. In fact, for my exam, I believe I had about 30 minutes left, but I spent my time wisely taking breaks. But anyway, you've got 120 questions, 20 don't count, and you've got 3 hours. So roughly, you want to be answering 40 questions every hour. There are no scheduled breaks, but you can take a break if you want. Of course, the exam has a survey at the end. So when you hit the end button, don't expect to see your result immediately. You're going to see the screen going blank for a bit, and then it will come up with the survey. And then after the survey, it will come up with your results. And what a relief it is to see, congrats, you've passed. And when I got done with my exam, huge relief, because I had put it on the back burner for so long that my 1 year period for taking the exam was just about running out. In fact, I think I had 7 or 9 days left to take the exam, because I was in heavy travel and heavy business mode for that 1 year, that to take time out to take the exam, sit down and do the studying I really wanted, that time never came. In fact, I did most of my studying for this exam on planes, flying out to DC and Virginia from Phoenix, 5-hour trip, 4.5-hour trip. That's all I did on the plane, study. I did that for about 3 or 4 trips. And then I felt I was ready, but these trips were like spread across. So that was how I got to study for the exam. What is the exam made of? You can see in this next image, it's broken down by domain. Welcome to part 2 of our review on how to be Pmi-Acp certified. So in the first section, we took a look at the ACP handbook, pretty much went through majority of the handbook. The pieces of the handbook I would advise you to read on your own are the rescheduling policies, the no-show status section, and the examination reports, and so on. Let's move on to the next document I would like to share with you here. Next document here is the Agile Manifesto. And you can find this freely on the web and on the Agile Alliance website. Very straightforward. It states we are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. Through this work, we have come to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contracts negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. That is, while there is value in the items on the right, we value the items on the left more. So what you can glean from this is the agile way of thinking focuses heavily on these items right here. And that's why it's often said that it's a leadership-centric way of thinking. We're talking about people, individuals, how those individuals interact, how they synergize is important. We're talking about the value that we bring, having software that actually works over comprehensive documentation. Customer, again, a human interaction, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. And the entire concept of being agile rests heavily on how we can respond to change, any type of change, human change, software change, project change, however you want to categorize it. And that's why people often say that it is a very leadership-centric way of thinking. So while there is value over processes and tools and over comprehensive documentation and over contract negotiation and over following a plan, the true character of Agile comes to play when we value these items on the left. A plan is great, but even greater is being able to change the plan when you need to change it. Contract negotiation is great, but even greater is customer collaboration. Comprehensive documentation of whatever you've developed is great, but if you don't have something that works, something that is actually predictable and works, then what good is all the comprehensive documentation? And processes and tools are great, but if you don't have humans working at peak potential, all of that goes down the drain. That's the mindset that this exam will test you on, the agile mindset, being agile. Being agile is a very important concept that project managers should understand. Whether your firm currently uses plan-driven or hybrid, definitely want to be in this lane. All right, next document that we're going to look at here, the Pmi-Acp content outline is pretty much the blueprint on which the exam is developed. And every PMI exam has one of these. And if you're getting ready for this exam, I recommend that you read it. So this first section is similar to what we've seen before. By the way, you can get the document, just Google PMI-ACP examination content outline. It should come up with the PDF that I just showed you. And it breaks the exam down. 120 questions, broken out 16% from domain 1, 20% from domain 2, so on and so forth. You can see that there very clearly. But the content outline breaks it down even further into sub-domains. Okay, so those are the 7 domains. But we can see at a high level, we go back to the first table, where majority of the marks come from are the areas of value-driven delivery, followed by stakeholder engagement, and then the agile principles and mindset, team performance. Those are where the heaviest areas of concentration are. And that concludes our review of the PMI-ACP exam, the eligibility and how to get started with it. And remember, if you've got groups in your firm looking to get certified either as ACPs or CSMs under the Scrum Alliance, Be sure to contact us because we offer these classes for groups of individuals. Also, if you want to know a little bit more about Agile, make sure you subscribe to our on-demand series via Praizion.com, and you can learn more about Agile in 2 2-hour seminars that we currently have on demand. All the best, and bye for now.